Okay. And so this being the last Sunday before Christmas, it starts to get really exciting from here on out, right? Anybody really getting excited for Christmas? Yeah? Eric, you're getting really excited for Christmas? Yeah. I like to see that. This is the last Sunday, so it's kind of like there's just one thing that stands between us and Christmas Eve. And this last Sunday, it's always love. So we got to talk about love before we even get to Christmas Eve. I feel like I've been talking about love for a couple days already, because yesterday I got to perform a wedding. Yeah. Have you ever been to a wedding around Christmas time? Yeah. They're kind of cool. Especially when, the couple chooses to sort of embrace the whole Christmas thing. Am I on? Yeah? It's working? Oh, it's just my ears then. Okay. I'm on. Okay. Yeah, this couple last night really embraced Christmas. I don't know why it's not. It must be me. I'm just not wearing it right. Is that better? Okay. All right. They really embraced the whole, the Christmas decorations, the twinkly lights, all that kind of stuff. Plus, they got married at Shenandoah Mill. Have you heard of this place? It's in Gilbert. I had never been there. It's kind of small, and it's the sort of place that's like tucked away, and so if you didn't know it was there, you'd never see it. And then at the last service, somebody told me a little bit about the mill. It is actually an old mill that they transported and moved from Pennsylvania or something like this. Amazing, right? And it's got all the old working mill pieces and everything. So picture this. It's kind of like a rustic, it's like a rustic farmhouse. So all the wood on the outside and on the inside is just rough, There's even these big, huge columns that you can put your arms around in the middle of it because it's got nice high ceilings. And then all the tables are rustic wood. And then you walk outside to the backyard, and there's a grassy yard with games on one side for all the kids, and then they got married out there too, so all the chairs are set up, and they get married under this really beautiful trellis with viney plants coming down. So you can kind of picture it in your head, right? Well, I gave kind of the same similar sermon that I usually give at weddings, and it's all about love. Fitting, right? Okay, so I talk about the different kinds of love. I think we've talked about this in a sermon, maybe a year back or something like that. Love in English is kind of a boring word because we just have one word for love, right? So you can say, I love hot dogs, or you can say, I love my children. It's the same word, right? So that's kind of crazy. But in Greek, they wanted to be more precise. So they actually have 4 words for love. So in this wedding sermon, I talk about 3 of them. Okay, so there's filial love, which is like brotherly love between, siblings and family and that sort of thing. And then there is, every time I push it back, it's better. And then there's eros love, which most people think that that's what you're talking about at a wedding because that's the passionate love. And I always say, oh yes, marriage is about that too. But the passages that folks use and choose for their weddings, it doesn't usually use eros in the text. It uses agape. And agape is the one that you read about the most because it's a self-sacrificing love. It's the purest form of love. It's the love that we receive from God. It's the love that we actually give to each other, too, when you feel like you really got it right? Like you gave love without a guilt trip with it. Yeah, that's agape love. You're like, that's the kind of love I want to give to my family, my friends, my kids, my parents, all that kind of stuff, agape love. But there is this one other form of love. It's called sturge. That sounds awful, doesn't it? Sturge. Yeah. This one is really hard to get a handle on. First of all, it's never even used in the New Testament, not even one time. In fact, the only reading of it in the New Testament is when they talk about the opposite of sturge. So they use, I think it's anthosturge or something like that. It's the best way I can describe it is maybe that it's natural love. Some people even say familial love, which I'm like, well, that steps on the toes of filial love. But that's why it's so hard to define. And wouldn't you know it, after the service, this guy comes up to me and he says, now I'd like to talk to you about these different types of love in Greek that you were talking about. And in my head, I'm going, oh no, I can tell by the tone of his voice that he's going to get very academic on me and he's going to ask me about Sturge, right? Yeah, sure enough, he does. He says, now what is your take on Sturge love? So I pulled one of those adult moments and I was like, why don't you tell me what you think first, right? Well, he wasn't buying that. So I finally had to fess up. I was like, dude, I don't know. I don't really understand it. And he said, thank you for saying that because I've asked other like theologian types, academic types, and they don't seem to know either. I thought, oh, good. I'm a good company. But I say all of this to make the point that love is sort of complicated, right? And it's really hard to define. I mean, can you imagine picking just one definition of love that would adequately describe everything that love is? That would be incredibly difficult. I mean, is love something that you say? Is it a feeling? Is it an action? What kind of an action is it? And between what people? It's crazy. It's hard to define. Now, this week I also tried to define other things that are hard to define. Maybe Quinn's going to help me with this. Any Star Wars fans? Yeah? It's okay, raise your hand. Oh, lots of Star Wars fans. All right, so I'm glad you're sitting down, and I hope we can all be friends after this. But I admitted publicly on Facebook that I'm just not a Star Wars fan. I know. I'll give it a minute to sit with you. I know. Thank you for being gracious for my moment of openness there. Well, I said, he's even wearing Star Wars today. Oh, goodness. Oh. Quinn, don't hate me. Don't hate me. I'm actually not allowed to watch them anymore. Not allowed to watch movies anymore. Paul said I'm not allowed. Because one of two things happens every time I watch a Star Wars movie. I either start giggling and like poking fun at the costumes and stuff. Yeah, he doesn't appreciate that. Or number two, I fall asleep because I can't follow the storyline as well, and so I just kind of give up. But I do know that there are themes in Star Wars that I would like and things that I could get on board with, right? So take, for instance, the Force, right? So on Facebook this week, I asked people, could you please help me out and just help me understand the Force? And some people used quotes from the movies and stuff, but overall I got the sense that it's kind of it's an energy, right, that is present in everything, like all of creation, and it ties everything together, unifies us and all of creation, and it also gives the Jedis their power. Fans, how am I doing? Is that okay? Close-ish? Oh, man. It's what? They get power too, but it's not the Force, right? They don't have the Force. No way. See? Wow. I am really interested in this. See? Maybe I should be allowed to watch them, hon. Yeah? He's like, no. He's like, no. I have a pastor friend who said, I'm supposed to be writing a Christmas Eve message. This is her Facebook post. But ever since a kid at church suggested I write a Star Wars-themed Christmas program, I can't write anything else. So you ready? It's really good. It's really good. Imagine Darth Vader sensing a disturbance in the Force and feeling threatened by a prophecy implying a Messiah other than himself sends stormtroopers to the Judean system to kill all boys under 2. The Holy Family flees his wrath, but are stopped for questioning. Fortunately, they are saved when one of 3 Jedi, recently arrived from a star system in the east, waves his hand in front of the guard and says, "This is not the Messiah you are looking for." Not bad. Star Wars fans are laughing. I'm happy. Okay. But I really had to go to the expert on this subject matter, which of course would be the Reverend Ron Bartlow. Yes. Okay. So if you've just been here since I've been here, Ron was here before me. He was the pastor before me and had plenty of Star Wars references in his sermons. Oh, you're going to love this. You're going to love this. He says the Force is a non-anthropomorphized, it's Ron, sense of the divine in all things. So what he meant by that is that when we think of God, we think of the divine, we try to make it like understandable, things that we get. So we kind of humanize God. God takes on a gender, God comes in a body in Jesus. God becomes things that we can relate to. But when you think about the force maybe as divine, it kind of transcends all of that. It's like it's too big. Like God is too big to really fit into any of those boxes that we try to use to understand God. Kind of cool. Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Ron. Now, when I try to understand love in the story of Narnia, I really like looking at Mr. and Mrs. Beaver. Because in the context of Narnia, they are really kind of like everyday Joe sort of characters. I mean, they're just members of the animal kingdom living in Narnia. But they really and truly understand love, and they understand Aslan most of all. Aslan is the Christ character. So they do a lot for the children when they come into Narnia. First of all, they're very loyal to the children, but also to Aslan. They offer hospitality. They're hopeful, and they really understand what it means to wait, because they have been waiting a very, very long time for Aslan to come back and bring good back into the world, this world of Narnia that's been taken over by the evil White Witch. They understand what it means to wait, even under great duress. But one of the great things that they do with the children is that, first off, when they meet the children, they come into Narnia, is they invite them home for dinner. Okay, so they take them home, and they all have dinner together in the Beaver's den. And I think that's really touching, right? Because when you want to share your life with somebody, don't you tend to end up sharing a meal with them? Or you get together over coffee, something like that? Because there's something like unique and intimate that happens when you share food with someone. Yeah, you share the food together, but you also end up sharing a little bit of yourselves. You share a little bit of your life. And we know this, that's not a foreign idea to us. In fact, there's all kinds of studies done, right, on the effects of community meals and even family meals, right? Did you know that 60 years ago, the average dinner took about 90 minutes? I know. Can you even imagine this? Today, the average meal, a family meal together, is about 12 minutes. I can tell you personally, our family is dragging down that average because the attention span is just not there yet, right? We're way less than 12 minutes. But there are studies that say that like kids and teens who share in just maybe 3 family meals a week, it changes their outlook on life. They're less likely to be overweight. They're more likely to eat healthy foods on a regular basis. They actually perform better academically. They're less likely to engage in risky behavior, and they also tend to have a better relationship with their parents. Go figure. You spend time talking to your parents at the table, you have a better relationship. All right. The Journal of Adolescent Health says that more frequent family dinners are related to fewer emotional and behavioral problems, greater emotional well-being, more trusting and helpful behaviors towards others, and higher life satisfaction. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Today's scripture is about a meal. It's about the Lord's Supper. So the first part of it outlines exactly what we celebrate. You know, once a month we have communion, and you hear those same words, the body and the blood. But then the second part talks about how we engage in that. How we engage in that. You know, there's another point in the Narnia story where food comes up, where food becomes a main player, and that's with Edmund and the Turkish delight. The Turkish delight is what the witch asks Edmund when they meet together. She says, "What would you like most to eat?" And he says, "Turkish delight." So my question to you is, has anyone actually eaten Turkish delight? Have you ever had it? Usually not Americans. Oh, wow, I'm impressed.
Gross.
Oh, thank you. That's exactly what I needed. It's not good. Okay, there are very few Americans who actually like Turkish delight. In fact, I found an article titled C.S. Lewis's Greatest Fiction, Convincing American Kids That They Would Like Turkish Delight, right? Because it's Edmund's greatest craving. Now, in his defense, I would say Edmund, the story takes place in wartime, so like sugar was severely rationed in England, so I can imagine why he would crave sugar or something sweet. But seriously, a candy that would be worthy of betraying your family, I don't know if Turkish Delight would be what I would choose. I mean, what would you choose? If Turkish Delight is the example of the ultimate temptation, okay? Something that right now, just thinking about it, is going to make your mouth water. What is that for you? What would be your Turkish Delight? Creme brulee, dark chocolate. Oh. What? Chunky? Chunky. Oh, I don't even know that one. Chunky chocolate bars. Okay. What else? I didn't get you guys over here. Oh, a king-size Hershey bar. You would betray your brothers and sisters for that one? Oh, the big one? Yeah, like from the Hershey factory itself. Anything else? Somebody at 9:30 said marshmallows, like toasted and warm. Yeah, all ooey gooey caramel. Yeah. What would be yours? Money. Thank you very much for acknowledging that. That could also be someone's Turkish Delight. Absolutely. Absolutely. The idea around Turkish Delight and Edmund's treatment of it is that he goes after that and only that, right? He doesn't stop to examine himself. In fact, he actually finds himself getting sick on it a little bit. You ever have that experience, like you eat too much sugar and you're like, oh my goodness, I just don't even feel good? The idea is that we actually need a balanced plate. And that's where the second part of the scripture comes in. In verse 28, it says, examine yourselves. Examine yourselves before you partake in this meal. Yeah, it's an ordinary meal. Bread and wine in Jesus' day, like it didn't get any more ordinary than that. But yet it's elevated as this holy symbol, as this really special time. And so before we partake in that meal, we are called to examine ourselves. To examine ourselves for the points of temptation in our lives, for the things that we do that focus on our own selfish desires. Now, my biggest fear in preaching this sermon today and talking on this subject is that the next time we would have communion, you'd remember, examine myself, and you would find, oh my goodness, I am not in perfect communion or perfect love with God or with anybody in my life. I better not take communion, right? That's not exactly the way I think that we are called to examine ourselves. We're called to examine ourselves not so that we would miss out on the grace of God, but so that we would be called in closer connection with God through that examine. That we come to understand our weaknesses, our faults, the places where we need to seek forgiveness, and know that we are welcome at the table even then. So at the end of the sermon yesterday for the wedding that I was at, I was talking with them about how great it is to get married at Christmas time. Really stinks when your anniversary comes around, though, because you don't get any presents. But but to have your wedding at Christmas time, mostly, you know, if you get married at a different time of year, you're so wrapped up in the momentum of like the love of your relationship and all your family coming in and all that stuff. Even the details don't usually overtake that feeling of love that you and your partner might have. And yet the whole world is not necessarily on that page. At Christmas time, everyone else is on the same page. Everyone else understands that we are waiting for love to come. We're waiting for love to become real and tangible for us. We're going to skip the video. We're not doing it. Because when Jesus was born, love is no longer just a concept. It's not just words. It becomes an actual body, a body that carries out actions. So during this season of Advent, we are called to examine ourselves so that our love is acted out in a worthy manner. As we wait for the coming of Christ, I leave you with these words. This is my body, which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me. This is the new covenant given for you, and whenever you drink it, do it in remembrance of me. And our prayer together on this last Sunday before Advent is, come, Lord Jesus, come. We'll continue our worship through the giving of tithes and offerings.